It's really important that everybody understands how much AI is disrupting things that are going on right now in this world.
There just are companies that are not willing to adapt.
In a different environment, you just have to change your strategy.
Ask yourself the difficult question. Do you really have enough content that would allow people to consume?
All right, hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Beyond Seven Figures podcast. With me today is a gentleman that I've worked with now for, it's going to be over a decade. He's been my secret weapon and my dirty little secret all at the same time. The truth of the matter is we've worked together to grow multiples of companies, taken many companies over the Inc. 5000 fastest growing companies list together. He and I was trying to calculate it. It's been, it's got to be well over $1 billion in sales with the work, just what we've done together. The increase in revenue from the marketing strategies to the copy to the coaching and whatnot over this time. It's really quite extraordinary. Tom Trush he's not only a coach for Predictable Profits, he's the head coach of our launch pad over at Predictable Profits. He's also sitting as our CMO inside of the company. He's our copywriter. He's overall just an extraordinary guy. We wouldn't be where we are today if it wasn't for the wise wisdom of Tom. So I'm glad to bring him here on the show. Welcome, buddy.
Hey, thanks for having me again, Charlie. Appreciate it.
Now you got to replay that introduction to your wife and to your kids, so they're like, see, guys, other people think I'm cool too.
Yeah. They need to share that one on social media, like all that kind of stuff.
Well, Tom, it was interesting. Right before this call, and the reason why I was late, I was talking with an SEO agency owner. We were talking about SEO and what a lot of people aren't even familiar with, which is AEO, which is basically the AI version of SEO. And it was cool because we were talking about the different ways that things are changing, the trends and so forth, because it's really important that everybody understands how much AI is disrupting things that are going on right now in this world. And what he shared with me is in Google right now, and I would encourage everybody to do this. If you go to Google and you type in a search, you're going to get a little snippet of AI overviews, and then you're going to get the regular Google search. But he said the next coming weeks, what's going to end up happening is on Google, type in a search, and you're going to notice at the top on the far left-hand side, I believe it says AI mode or AI overview or something like that. Click on that. And he said, Google is going to be defaulting to that in the next few weeks or so. And so think about the keywords that you currently rank for now, go to AI mode and see what the difference is. And just look at what the future of search actually looks like. It's extraordinary. Like, it's crazy. It's funny. You and I have been, again, working together for over a decade. Have you ever seen so much disruption? And it's almost like this feeling like we're trying to catch up, even though we're ahead. It's almost like things are moving so fast.
Well, I think this is what makes things exciting for us. I mean, I could say personally, I don't know that I've been more excited about business than I am right now, just because there's so much new testing and things are happening so fast. Yep. And I mean, within Predictable Profits, like we love to test. We love to take strategies that, some people may seem are not the norm, and just start putting stuff out there and seeing what happens. And it gives us a great advantage because not only do we test and we can find out what works, but then also we have a board of directors that they're always testing and we're sharing ideas and concepts and stuff. But there's so many companies out there that are kind of sitting on their hands now. They're taking a wait and see approach and they aren't making the adjustments that AI is requiring. Just you mentioned with Google, just because of AI, it's changed how people search. And we've seen that with the drop of organic traffic on websites. And because of the AI overviews, that's contributed to so many companies having a drop in organic traffic. So then the question becomes, all right, well, what are you doing to adjust and accommodate that drop? You have to be doing something. And if you're not, well, you're just going to continue to fall behind.
I was talking to one of he's an AI expert. Like he's one of the smartest people I know when it comes to AI. And it was interesting because it was earlier this week where he said to me how you can tell the difference between a fraud and somebody who actually is really deep in AI. And I was like, what's this? He goes, the fraud's going to tell you that they're up to date on AI and they know everything that's going on in AI. And he goes, that's the fraud. I go, what do you mean? And he said, it is moving at such a fast pace. Nobody who is actively practicing and in the world of AI can honestly say that they are up to date and they know everything that's going on because it's moving faster. So the difference is, that old story, it's how do you something along the lines of how do you ensure that you don't get eaten by a bear?
How is it?
You just got to run faster than the guy next to you. You just got to run faster. So it's like, how do you ensure you don't get eaten by a bear? Just run faster than the guy next to you. So when it comes to AI, and we were talking about this earlier in the board of directors meeting, it's like, well, how do you ensure that you're going to ultimately obtain an advantage with all these changes that are moving so fast? You're just going to be a little faster than your competitors. But
yeah, it's a great point you bring up because, just thinking about AI, people get overwhelmed. And it's not like you have to know everything. And
I get
you got to,
overwhelmed.
yeah. I mean, it's not like you have to stay on the cusp of everything that's changing. It's just in comparison to your competitors, you have to be doing a bit more. And let's be honest that we see it all the time. There just are companies that are not willing to adapt, or again, they're sitting back on a wait and see approach. And at the same time, they're losing, organic traffic to their website. Their sales cycles are slowing down because they're not adapting to the changes in how people buy. So by simply just staying a little bit ahead of your competitors, you give yourself such an advantage.
For people who have been following me on the podcast for a while, you've heard me talk about this over and over again. I mean, to the best of my knowledge, we're really have been the first people talking about this, or maybe even the only people. I don't know anyone that's really talking about this right now. It's just that AI has disrupted the buyer's journey so much. AI has disrupted every single member, every company out there. And the interesting thing is, when I say that to people, I mean, we were together we did a live event here in West Palm Beach, brought in a bunch of our clients, had an absolute blast. And we talked about this, and there's some of the smartest people in the world. And when we talked about how AI has already disrupted their business, so many of them are going, huh? How? And it's like, well, all you have to do is go look at your traffic. There's been about a 60% decline in organic traffic. That's because of AI overviews and what it's already done. People think, oh, the economy has gut punched my business. The economy is doing great. Look at the metrics. Economy is doing great. This is just one of the many ways in which AI is disrupting the business. And that, when we look at how that trend is moving, the trend is moving so that by the year 2030, 100% of all buying activity is going to happen as a result of a rep-free sales experience. We'll go into that in a lot more detail, but basically what that means is by the time somebody ends up getting on the phone with you, when they do, they won't need to be sold to get on the phone with you. What it means is that they would have already made the decision that they do want to do business with you. But what I want to talk about today, Tom, is a topic that's come up over and over again, which is this idea of why your sales team's not closing at a rate that they otherwise should be closing at. In other words, like why your sales team's lower than expected closing rate, why it's not their fault. So think about it. Why their low close rate is not their fault. So when I say that, Tom, when I come up with those words, in general, there's a lot of variables, but in the context of today's conversation, why is it not their fault, Tom? What comes to mind?
Well, I think one of the big reasons, and I think probably why you have me here, is that a lot of the sales journey happens, before a prospect even talks to a salesperson. And a lot of that journey happens through content and copy. And so it used to be that salespeople had all the information and, they controlled and they were responsible, for getting the lead, for nurturing the lead, for educating the lead, closing the lead. Everything in the sales process fell on the salesperson's shoulders, or many times, unfortunately, the founder's shoulders a lot. But now, with so much research going on, you mentioned before, a lot of that buying decision, the majority of it is happening before a prospect even reaches out to salespeople. And so oftentimes that we see that salespeople are getting, we use the term loosely, leads, and are trying to close people, these leads, but they're not anywhere near the point where they're making a decision about buying.
No.
And so they are trying to convince people that their solution is the best. They are the best to present to fix a problem that the prospect is having. But the problem is many salespeople are getting these leads that they just are not ready to buy yet. They haven't gone through this process of researching, evaluating, all that type of stuff. And so it becomes very difficult to close them. You're trying to force a close on people who just aren't ready.
That actually is part ultimately of the founder's trap. The founder's trap is made up of several different traps, right? There is a trap when it comes to setup and actually just getting leads that go beyond just word of mouth and referrals. There is a sales trap, which ultimately the founder is still heavily involved in influencing those sales for making them happen. There's a scaling trap where still the founder has to be involved in every element of operations and so forth. And so, that is a trap. There's a number of different traps. And by the way, if you're in the founder's trap, you're in the founder's trap because you've taken your business to a certain level of success, and it's actually your success. You have to be successful to fall into the founder's trap. Like that's something that a lot of people don't realize, is that it's when you get to a certain point, when you've reached a certain level of success, you fall into that trap. And so there's many different rungs in the ladder that have to be available for you to actually get out. So when you think about that sales trap, it's when the CEO is forcing the sales team to do all the heavy lifting. When you think about that, the sales team doing all the heavy lifting, explain that. Like, what is going on that the sales team is doing all the heavy lifting? Like, put that into context, and then how does that have to change?
Yeah. So unfortunately, again, like we shared, they're having to do the heavy lifting because the prospect has not had time yet to go through that buyer's journey where they are researching and evaluating. And unfortunately, that from a founder's trap perspective is that when a founder, a CEO sees that their sales team is struggling, like what's their natural response? They go in to fix the problem. They're like, oh, give me the calls. Let me close them. Now all the pressure now goes back, and the founder or CEO, who's already busy enough, now gets trapped and has to do sales. And, the reality is the founder, the CEO, they have an advantage when it comes to sales just because of their position, an advantage that the sales team does not have. And so naturally, they're going to be able to close. Oftentimes, it's much easier for them to close than the sales team. But once things start struggling at the sales level, of course, like any founder or CEO who cares about their company, like they're going to go in and try to save the day. And all that does is just create more chaos. It doesn't fix the solution. If anything, it introduces new problems to the situation.
I know, it's crazy. And one of the things that we know about buyers is buyers are researchers. And the easiest example that I use all the time is like, and this has been going on for a little bit, but if you think about just buying a car. I remember when I was a kid and I went to go buy my first car, like I really didn't know what I was going to get, how much I was going to pay for it. I went on the lot. I'm looking around at all the cars. I went to a whole bunch of different brands and dealerships, and I'm asking the salesperson details about the car, and can you let me in, and can I sit in it and test drive it? And it was a long, laborious process. That's certainly not the case now. Actually, if you look at the trends and where things are going and just buying a car, over here in Palm Beach, Elon closed the Tesla dealership because, as rumor has it, people don't want to just go to a dealership to buy a car. They want to do it off their app. And is that surprising? No, because we see that right now with Carvana. People are turning around. You buy a car at Carvana, they ship it to your house. They'll even take your trade-in while they're here and pay you a premium for it. So we're becoming more and more used to spending, 5-6 figures just through our apps. Right? We're researchers. We already know everything. And yet you look around and you say, sales teams, they're the way that so many companies have sort of designed their strategy is they're like, oh, we'll have the salesperson give them all the information that they need to try to make a buying decision because they're not going to find it anywhere else.
They're gatekeeping information. They want their salespeople, to be the ones that have the information. They don't freely put it out there. And I kind of want to flip this back to you because you did such a good job in West Palm Beach with when we had our clients there explaining this whole process of how people are looking for, the buyer's journey. What, again, once they get to the salespeople, they're mostly through that buyer's journey. I mean, we've seen the data, 70 under the 90% sometimes, as much of that buyer's journey has been decided before somebody reaches out to sales. And you referenced earlier in this episode that ultimately it's going to get to a point where almost 100% of that journey will be done by the prospect on their own without talking to somebody. So one of the big eye openers in West Palm Beach was when you had people start mapping out their journeys and how many different places that they have content and just the ability for people to get their questions answered, research their situation. And I think it was a real eye opener once you start mapping that out. And these people saw it, that many companies, they just don't have enough of that opportunity out there. So yeah, I'd love for you to go into more detail on that, because again, it was such an eye-opening experience for me.
Here's a perfect example. I was talking to a board of directors member this morning. He runs a PR firm, very successful, multi-seven-figure PR firm. And we're having this exact same conversation that you and I are having right now. And we're talking about his outbound marketing strategy and so forth. And I said, look, I'm going to go into my crystal ball for a minute, and I'm going to take a guess right now at the age of the people that are actually responding to your outbound marketing. And he sits back and he looks at me a little funny and he goes, huh? And I go, I'm going to bet right now that the average age of the people responding were 45 and older. That you're actually not getting people that are under 45 responding to your messages. And he goes, oh, come to think of it, you're right. It's probably even closer to 55 is the average age. And I said, but can we all agree that millennials and Gen Zs are becoming more and more influential and becoming more and more active in the buying decision process? And he goes, yeah, that's clear. But why am I only getting like 55-year-olds? And I said, because the Gen X is accustomed to buying a certain way. They're going to see your message. They're going to be intrigued by your message. And they'll get on the phone and they're okay with learning more. Gen Z and millennials are a little bit different. They're going to go to your website about 2 to 6 times before they agree to get on the phone with you. They're going to do their research ahead of time. And then I'm going to your website right now, and your website doesn't tell me anything about what makes you different, what makes you unique. You're, really leaning in on your unique advantage point or your super consumer or anything else for that matter. And so you are inadvertently killing your conversions as opposed to attracting them. So God himself could have created that outbound marketing strategy, but because they're going to the website and you're losing them on the website, because you're going to your LinkedIn profile and you're losing them on the LinkedIn profile, you're actually the one who is inadvertently preventing your sales team from hitting their quotas and converting at a rate they otherwise should.
Yeah.
Hey, if you're listening to the Beyond Seven Figures podcast, you may already have a great business and you've cracked that elusive 7-figure mark. But let's be honest, building a business is one thing, but scaling it to true, lasting profitability is a whole other ballgame. That's why I'm excited to share something special with you. It's the Predictable Profits Playbook written by Charles Gourdette. So go now to beyond7figures.com.
Exactly. The internet in the grand scheme of things isn't all that old. And there has been now, a couple generations who have grown up with the internet and they have had easy access to information. Now, before, as we talked about earlier, salespeople, people within a company held all that information. So you actually had to talk to those people. Yep. And that was comfortable for prospects back then. Like if I needed information, I'm fine picking up a call, asking questions, talking to somebody. But there are so many people now, they've become comfortable with researching because of the internet, because of social media, that is their preferred method of going through that buyer's journey. And if you don't allow that and you don't have the content out there that allows that, you're really putting you and your sales team at an incredible disadvantage because you're limiting your audience. There's a very small percentage of the audience that are going to be fine with just calling up, and it's likely going to be an older audience and that is going to be fine picking up the phone and just dialing and start asking questions. Like that just doesn't happen as much now.
Yeah. I mean, at a very basic level, you look at God knows how many different websites a day in coaching our clients. Would you say are sort of the top 5 things that immediately, as soon as you look at a website, you immediately go, this website is a conversion killer, not a conversion creator. Like you just know that if they just made these 5 changes almost overnight, that they'd start to see a difference in response rates.
Yeah. I mean, I could go on for a long time on this topic, but like, let's just start with the 3 questions that I ask every time that I'm reviewing a website, specifically the homepage is, what problem do you solve? Who do you solve it for? And why should I believe you? If you can't answer those questions above the fold on a website, or your prospect can't answer those questions above the fold on the website before they even scroll, then you've got a conversion killer. Now, the other thing to think about is that, again, with buyers being researchers, and it's not just on your website, but now they're using multiple channels, is you have to give them that opportunity to consume content. And I like to think of it as a bingeable bank of content. So do you give your prospects that opportunity if they find what you say, let's say, I don't know, if it's a LinkedIn post or they see something on your website that draws their interest, are you giving them an opportunity to now binge more content from you and literally like go down a rabbit hole of content that you provide? So yes, that can be on your website, but it also has to be on other channels because we know buyers are using multiple channels to research during this buyer's journey. So in B2B, that could be LinkedIn. It could be things like, again, this podcast episode. But you have to give that opportunity for your prospects to consume content from you and make it in a bingeable format. So, and this goes back to like on your social channels. There you go. Consumption drives conversion.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So, I mean, that's a question that I would turn over to the listeners is like, is there a way that you're providing prospects a way to binge content from you? Content that's actually going to help them, not just that's all about their company. Because again, content that is related to the buyer's journey. So yeah, Charlie, your concept around consumption drives conversion, like let's just tee that up for you. Like take it away and talk about how important that is.
Well, again, it's empowering the buyer, right? It's empowering the buyer so that you're able to give them all the information that they need in order to make a buying decision. But we do know consumption drives conversion. One of the most recognizable digital marketers on the planet, he called me up and he was like, how do I shorten my sales cycle? And I was like, well, up until 2019, you would optimize for conversion. Post 2019, people really started leaning in on research. They go through this cycle of exploration and evaluation. We're seeing about on average 36 different times. That's up from 17 back in 2019. So it's significantly more. It's the information that they're looking for in order to feel comfortable to know that the answer to the 3 questions really kind of fits in, which is what, Tom? Those 3 questions?
What problem do you solve? Who do you solve it for? And why should I believe you?
Right, because they want to know that they're having the right conversation with the right person. And so that consumption part, this particular gentleman, when I told him that about consumption, he looked at his data and he said 7 hours and 28 minutes. And I said, what does that mean? He goes, 7 hours and 28 minutes. Our buyer will consume on average 7 hours and 28 minutes, whether that is the time they're spent on our website, watching a video, whatever that might be. It comes out to about 7 hours and 28 minutes. Now, Google had another research report. It's called their 7-11-4. They realized that 7 hours was the magic number that they came up with too, 7 hours of content. So ultimately, what we're trying to do is optimize for that consumption. If you want somebody to buy quickly, how do you find ways to create content, as you said, Tom, bingeable? They're going to consume. Interestingly enough, it reminded me of a book that I read many years ago about the world's greatest car salesman. And one of the strategies that he talks about is keep them on the lot. Keep them on the lot for as long as you can. And if you keep them on the lot for as long as you can, the odds of them buying become significantly heavier, larger, right? But rookie salespeople are going to get somebody in the door and they're going to try to process this transaction as quick as possible so they can move on to the next one and do it and blah, blah. It's like, are you ready to buy or whatnot? Now, that was back in the day, when when you had to educate the buyers. Now it's a little different. You don't have to educate the buyers on the car, but you want them to spend the 7 hours content on the internet and walk in the dealership to buy if they don't do it on their phone. But it really is just that. It's about consumption, putting out content. I had a conversation with another gentleman today, and we were talking about podcasting. And it was like, there's a lot of different strategies for podcasts. But Tom, I mean, you've sat in a number of these board of directors meetings. Do you recall offhand what percentage of our buyers actually listened to several episodes before they became clients? Do you remember the conversations?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard yes, but I mean, I don't know exact number, but again, it's a perfect example of bingeable content.
It's an overwhelming amount of people. I still remember that Ozzy. He's probably listening to this now. Great dude, funny guy. And he said he listened to every single one of the podcast episodes before becoming a buyer. Most people will listen, before investing in business coaching. But it's like, whether it's a podcast, whether it's a video, YouTube, article, email, it's all part of empowering the buyer to make smart decisions, but putting content that's going to be relevant to them. Most companies just don't have a system, don't have a strategy to drive that consumption, to drive that influence. They don't. It happens all sort of haphazard and let's just put something out kind of randomly and why isn't it working? I'm putting out socials. I'm putting out this and that, but I don't know why it's not working. And it's because they're putting out content, they're not putting it out with intention.
With that number of 7 hours, like you can, think about, like, does the typical company, are you offering prospects an opportunity to consume as much as 7 hours of content? Whether it's an audio format like this, video format, written content, like, do you have 7 hours of content out there? Are you even giving that opportunity? I mean, I think it's a worthy question to ask, because there are plenty of companies out there that I think once they understand this concept, that they're more likely to put it out there. But the reality is that's a lot of content, and there are plenty of companies that just aren't putting out that much of content, and they're not putting out that content consistently.
The thing is people think I do marketing, but what do we know? Nobody can do marketing. Nobody can do marketing. It's like me saying I do doctoring. Like, you can't do doctor, you can't do marketing. Marketing is a function. Marketing is a function of how you create, capture, nurture demand. It is a function. So how effective are you at creating demand? Think about it. Do you know how effective you are creating demand? Most might not know, but this is the anonymous visitors that are doing a whole bunch of research to figure out, how does it make sense? And, one of the metrics would be brand recall. How effective are you? How effective are you at capturing demand? Many people will say, I generate X amount of leads per day, per week. They get it. But then how effective are you in nurturing that demand? And again, most will look at me like with a blank stare on their face and shrug their shoulders, and they don't understand. But nurturing demand is how you take leads and then turn them into buyer-ready leads. So by the time they move into the sales team, you're not selling them anymore. You're just qualifying them. You're trying to see, is this really a good fit for you? And that's the difference. If you feel like you're still educating and you're selling people on the sales call, then you haven't done a good job with your setup. Because by the time somebody gets on the phone with you, you should be qualifying them. You should be seeing, okay, let's just make sure that there's a right fit. And it's just a little bit of fine tuning. Same thing like the last car that I purchased. I just wanted to ask, I already knew I wanted it. Just wanted to ask a couple little questions about some additional features that I wanted. That's it. But I already knew I wanted it. And that's where we're seeing things going. Again, 100% of all buying decisions by the year 2030 are going to be happening through rep-free sales experience. I would almost argue that a majority of that 100% gap, while we're talking about 2030, by the end of 2026, we're going to see that the majority of that is happening. I am genuinely concerned right now for the business owners that aren't listening to what we're talking about right now. I am genuinely concerned because back in the 90s, when web pages rolled out, it took so long for those who didn't have a website to really feel truly disrupted. And they didn't just disappear. They just noticed business was slow. Then eventually they put a website up. They became more seen, but it just wasn't part of the overall buying process. It was really like about a decade that they had of timing to adjust and get with the times. And we didn't even have mobile phones back then. So it wasn't like people were making buying decisions on their phone. They were, or maybe we started to have mobile phones, but you can search the internet, right? So it was just a matter of people building that habit. But this is different. Sometime next year, what's going to end up happening is that companies are fundamentally going to disappear. Their website traffic is going to go to almost zero other than direct traffic because they're not listening to what we're talking about right now. And there's going to be this big giant divide. You're going to see the people that are taking action, the stuff that we're talking about right now, and the stuff that we're teaching our clients are going to turn around and they're going to have a significant advantage. It's going to be the best time that they have ever had in their business because when you look at the entire grouping of possible market share that is now shared among all the competitors, because of the way AI is disrupting the business, they're going to take this entire market and they're going to narrow it down to just a segment of people that understands the differences in today's buyer. And all that traffic is going to go to them. They're going to have more business, more leads, more opportunities, and they know what to handle. Meanwhile, everybody else, they're going to disappear. And when you hear stories about UBI, universal basic income and everything, and they're thinking it's because AI is going to make employees redundant, what I believe is going to end up happening is that businesses are going to go out of business because they won't be found. They won't know how to catch up. And as a result, there's going to be a whole ton of people on the market looking for a job. But while that might sound concerning, how do you save yourself from getting eaten by a bear? Tom?
Yeah, just don't be the slowest one.
You don't even have to be great. You just need to be just a bit better than your competition, and you'll have a tremendous opportunity in front of you.
Exactly. I'll throw one other thing in there. The companies are going to have the advantage are also going to have greater patience. I recently posted on my...
I'm just going to say that I'm screwed. If you're telling me I need patience, ask my kids. That's one thing I haven't. I said I need to go to patience school.
I often tell my wife she needs a little more of the P word. Patience, yes. But I recently posted on my LinkedIn study from Dream Data talking about the average B2B buyer's journey, and it is now at 211 days. So as we talked about it, and again, going back to the end of this episode, sales teams trying to get people on calls way too early. They're not done with the buying process, or they haven't done any of their research. They haven't explored anything of that. And so that's why they're going to struggle. But if you go in with the idea, especially in a B2B environment, that, hey, this is going to take a little time. I need to give my prospect enough time to consume 7 hours of content to really do the research that a prospect requires now. And to go in with the understanding that, yeah, it could take 211 days, for my prospect to convert, and go with the understanding that that's okay. I mean, we've talked about within predictable profits, the average time it takes for a member to become a board member to convert, it's 365 days. So it's right around there. It's right around a year, once they get into our ecosystem. So it's one of those things you have to go in with patience and understand you're not going to convert them super quick, especially in B2B environments.
Well, and the funny thing is that's just the ones that have been captured through one of our lead magnets. But the people who have converted quickly, the people that convert on the first time that they're recognized and that they're in our database, they've actually consumed the 7 hours of content, but we just didn't know they were doing that. They were listening to the podcast, they were watching YouTube videos, they were reading blogs, they were consuming all that content beforehand. So you look at it and be like, the sales cycle for this person was 48 hours. Boom. It's like, no, it wasn't. It was still 7 hours. You just didn't capture them earlier.
Oh, another great point. The silent or invisible consumer. I think we could do a whole episode on that topic. It's one of those things where, again, we talk about posting content. People will post and then they won't see the engagement they want. Maybe they won't see the likes, or they won't get as many opens, on their emails that they send, and they get discouraged. But as we see time and time again, it's the silent or invisible consumer, the one you have no clue is consuming your content, are often the quickest buyers, and you have no idea. But it's just simply a matter, and it shows the importance of consistently putting content out there, because, as you like to stress, Charlie, consumption drives conversion.
Oh, you're right. The silent consumer, the silent observer, that should be another episode, because we could talk about that for a long time, because they're really one of the most valuable, sources, opportunities. But I know we're pushing up against the clock, Tom, and I want to leave people with really a comment that you made when we started this podcast. You and I, arguably, this is the most exciting time that it has ever been since we've been in business. People are going to think we're crazy, but the last time we were this excited was actually during COVID, because we knew the strategies that needed to take place for people to adapt during COVID. And 86% of our clients had broke sales records, had the best year they had ever had in their business, including some of the craziest companies like travel and restaurants, when they should have been pummeled because all the other companies in their industry were struggling. And yet, like this one travel company broke every daily, weekly, monthly, yearly sales record when they couldn't even put people on a plane. Because when economies don't change from good to bad, it just means that in a different economy, in a different environment, you just have to change your strategy, and strategies are different. But because everybody is so slow to adapt and everybody is so slow to change, if you just run a little bit faster than the next person, you are going to get more opportunities available to you than you have in a long time. And so that's why, to your point, this literally is the most exciting time, I think, since for decades that I can remember. It's extraordinary. So people should be excited. Would you agree, Tom?
I agree. 100%. I agree.
So look, if you have questions about how you could take advantage of the opportunities that exist today for you, we're constantly putting out content and resources and strategies, most of which we're giving to you just to consume, make it bingeable. So you can learn from this and make changes in your own business. And we do this at no cost. Again, it's consumption drives conversion. At some point, of course, we welcome you inside of the board of directors program. There's a lot of resources that you could take advantage of right now that will give you such a leg up on everybody else. So Tom, I know we're working on a workshop, and that workshop, what's the premise behind this workshop that's coming up? Can you shed some light on that?
Yeah. So it's this whole idea of like, how do you build a buyer ready lead system? And even better for those founders stuck in the founder's trap, how do you build a buyer ready lead system that closes deals without you? And so a lot of this will go into the details about how to accommodate these buyers that are going through this journey, what type of content you want to put there, how do you stay in front of them? So we are working on that right now. We're putting that together. It's going to be December 10th is the workshop. It's still too early. We don't have a landing page to register, but I don't know. I think if people want to at least get an early notice, however they hear this, maybe message us on LinkedIn, wherever, let us know, and we'll get you on an early list, let you know when that registration opens. But you'll start, and we'll be promoting it plenty, so you'll see it. But yeah, December 10th, this whole idea, we're going to be showing you how to build a buyer-ready lead system that closes deals without you.
In fact, on our website at predictableprofits.com, you'll see a link somewhere for community. That is a free community that you can join. You join that community, and our community members will be the first to be made aware of what's going on here and get access to this workshop. So, predictableprofits.com, look for the link community in there. That'd be the best way to join that. And then when you're in there, just give a shout out. Let us know you came in through the podcast, and we'll make sure you get those resources. You're a busy man. You got some people, your dings, your everything else. Any last minute thoughts before we jump on?
I think the main thing is going back to that concept of having a bingeable bank of content, and really start thinking about and ask yourself the difficult question. Do you really have enough content that would allow people to consume for 7 hours? Because that's the magic number right now, is that 7 hours of content. So that content could be, again, written form, audio, video. It can be posts on socials. So really making sure and asking yourself, again, that tough question. Do you have 7 hours of content out there? Because your buyers are demanding that right now, especially in B2B situations.
Yeah. And relevant content that helps them make better, smarter, wiser business.
Yes.
Awesome. So that wraps up today's episode of the Beyond Seven Figures podcast. Again, your sales team's low closing rate isn't their fault. Our buyers have become researchers, and they expect to have information in front of them in order to make smart decisions. If you think that you can hold back this information until you get them on the phone, well, you might only get those Gen Xers on the phone, because the millennials and the Gen Z, they have a different way of finding their information. They're going to give preference to those that are willing to empower them. Empowering the buyers is an advantage for today's consumer. We want to leverage that as much as possible. You are right now in one of the best times in the world for you to be in business. Seriously, one of the best times, because it just takes a little bit more of an advantage over that of your competitors and you're going to capture more market share easier and faster than you have done any other time in the past. So lean in. Now's the time to do it. If we can support you, check us out at predictableprofits.com. Again, that's predictableprofits.com. This is Charles Gutta with my buddy Tom Trush, and I will see you in another episode.